Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Yes, good day and welcome back.
Take two had a pop-up on a different article that kept just basically playing itself. And I have Brave browser, which I'm using here, which is supposed to block that from happening. So take two, and I'm just going to give you the link to this lady's name and her position there at Mount Sinai Hospital. This is Dr. Shanna H. Swan, I should say, PhD. Professor in Environmental Medicine and Public Health. Now, she has come out and made a very, very strong statement that, well, the males in the U.S. and also perhaps even globally, they're not going to have any sperm, any effective sperm come 2045. So basically what she is saying is that Homo sapiens will be going the route of Neanderthals, Denisovans, Cro-Magnon, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, all these other forms of, humanoid beings that walk this planet that have become a dead end. And she's given us the date of 2045. Now that's curious because that's what Diehold says is going to be the date of the big blast from the sun that causes that movie 2012 scenario with kind of a combination of the movie Knowing, where half the globe gets fried and then the other half gets massive tsunamis, and it's the big reset, so to speak. We know there's an economic reset underway, and this would be a true big reset. We have also gotten that time frame is about accurate from what the guides have showed us for the true magnetic pole reversal crustal displacement event.
Yeah, and I think about it. It's really sobering to think about that for most of us, that's in our lifetime. Wow.
Yes. And, the reason why she says the biggest culprit is plastics. Plastics in the environment, plastics in our body, plastics in mother's milk. And also sperm count has declined by more than 50%. It's around 60% since 1973. That's huge. Huge. There are so many people that are infertile right now.
Yep.
And think about everything else that's going on right now that could be adding to that.
Mm-hmm. A lot.
Yes. Yes, most definitely. And so I might have to adjust some of these things as we go through a second take. Historic rainfall, significant flood threat continues for south central U.S., at least 5 fatalities in Louisiana. As you see, this truck is almost totally submerged. Houston has basically twice the annual average rainfall. New Orleans has 5 times that. Can you imagine when we start getting tropical storms rolling in, potential hurricanes coming, and then with perhaps some artificial flavoring? What if we have another Florence type event where it goes at 1 or 2 miles per hour? Oh, this is big. Get your boats ready, guys.
Yes.
Get your boats ready. And we've been saying that for over 3 years. Vicious hail, too. This is down in Mexico. As you see, this put 250,000 people in the dark. Hurricane force winds, northeastern Mexico. Look at the ambulances right there. All those windows smashed out. Look at the size. Let's see if they're going to show it. There you go. Size of that hail. That could do damage. And we want to share with you guys, like yesterday we actually had a potential accident. It was pretty devastating. We passed down this country road and then we came back around the same way about an hour later, and there was not any major storms or anything that happened, but there was a power line that was down that was hanging, I want to say about 4.5 feet off the ground. And so it was at the height where it would have just basically, if we didn't have a windshield, it would have caused both by the neck.
Yeah.
But it did smash against the windshield as we couldn't see it. And it just was bizarre. And so we asked the guides about that, and they said, yeah, it was basically a warning from certain powers that be, which we know because we've gotten the warning from the guides that they're watching much more closely. We can see everything that's going into effect right now. There were two certain projects that most definitely are in play, as that we have talked about before on Brighteon and Bitchute. And Bitchute, by the way, won't let me post, so effectively that's dead in the water. No answer or help from Bitchute over there, but I hear that other people have experienced the same things. But we do post on Brighteon too. And as I've shared with you guys before, there was a weird incident that happened when I was in Florida after a certain group that starts with an I and ends with an I reached out to me multiple times. But after the first time they reached out and they wanted to basically recruit, and we turned it down. I turned it down at that time. That was before Cindy and I were together. Then the next day there was a car that was doing donuts in a park after knocking down an iron fence and headed straight for my house and left its bumper in the driveway. It seemed to hit an invisible barrier, skirted down, drove along the sidewalk, taking out neighbors' trees and signs and mailboxes, and then went around the corner and was abandoned by the driver. That was a really curious incident, but there's been many incidents as well. We've had certain things that you might utilize if you were out there in the woods and you were HUNTER. We've had things left in closets right by the bedroom door. So
that were obviously meant for 3 individuals that were in that house. And if that power line had been just, I think, a couple inches lower, because it was so big and fat, it was like a big cable, I think it could have actually clotheslined the truck and did serious damage, but we hit it just so it whacked straight up.
Yeah, we were grateful, and we know we have protection from the guides as well. But again, in this 3D existence, of course, there are things that can happen to anybody in the 3D existence. So we see that we have wildfires starting up again, Manitoba, Canada, wildfires burning at extremely dangerous levels. And what will this wildfire season bring? As every wildfire season, it seems, in the West has been surpassing the previous year. The biggest fire reported is in Homebrook, estimated to be 355,800 acres. That's more than 50 miles long and 10 miles wide at its widest point. And there are also wildfires underway in Siberia. And, much of the permafrost is burning, and that's adding a lot of emissions to the atmosphere. But what we have going on too, to counteract that, and by the way, Moscow is hitting record highs. Everything's going to be totally different in, say, 100 years when you look at this globe. But there will be people here. There will be, but also the Earth itself is ascending out of this 3D zone. So it won't be everybody. And I think we touched on that yesterday, that we've gotten from the guides that basically 60% of the humans incarnated here on the planet right now have only known this existence. They've only known Earth, and they've only known 3 and 4D. But that leaves 40% that have experienced lifetimes on other planets and perhaps in higher densities. As we know, there are volunteers, and many of you that are part of this family are volunteers, that you don't have to necessarily be here. Your home might be on 5 or even 60, so to speak. But you come here to help raise the consciousness. And it's kind of easy to see which people are stuck, in this 3D mire, and perhaps the ones that have never experienced anything higher, because they kind of believe narratives. They might understand the mainstream media is lying to them, but then they'll still fall for either the left right-wing paradigm politically, or they'll fall for one of the major religious groups that is given to us again by these same powers that be, that have molded this whole scenario into one big controlling mechanism. And here we see ash produced by Sangay volcano is rising up to 31,000 feet in Ecuador, and Ecuador, of course, is on the equator. And so this is the type of thing that's going to lead to even more cooling. As we are watching many, many eruptions happening. And over at Stromboli in Italy as well, there's pyroclastic flows going on. It's reaching the coastline. Again, eruptions going on. All this is leading to record cold, as we see parts of Australia haven't been so cold, like Sydney, since 1967. So global cooling is actually kind of what is in store for us. Yet we have a big chunk of Antarctica breaking off about the size of Majorca. And, again, there's volcanic activity down there. So it's not necessarily that Antarctica is warming up so much, as we've seen, actually record gains in many areas. It's that there is volcanic activity underneath that's heating things up. And it is a danger if we do lose a lot, not sea ice, because sea ice is already on the ocean, but that ice that is on the land sliding into the ocean will rise ocean levels. And over here, by the way, we see the Earth has cooled 0.8 degrees Celsius since 2016. That's almost a full degree Celsius in 5 years. So, things are changing, and Delhi, India suffers the coldest May Day in 70 plus years. And meanwhile, we have a KP index of 5, so we have a minor geomagnetic storm, but we've seen it raise up to 7. And because the magnetosphere is in decline, everything is going to be more effective in inducing change. And I do think that many of us are getting more and more sensitive to when these storms come. We could feel them. They are upgrades. They are upgrades. The sun is all about bringing light. Light is information. Light leads to gnosis, which, again, is experiential. We could study things all we want with the left brain, but until we're starting to actually experience things through the right hemisphere and the union of the right with the left. Again, think of the nadis, the energetic channels of the Ida and the Pingala. They have to be in balance. They have to be basically brought to life with that Shakti energy that lies dormant in the vast majority of people on this planet. If the Shakti energy, which is that divine feminine energy, which is residing at the base of the spine, if it's not initiated, then you're not going to have that perceptive ability. And we could study all we want with our left brain. We'll never know with a G.
No, it's something that we all have to experience, and we're going through it. And as the sun does do these sneezes, I think it is automatically awakening in people. My concern is it's sometimes being disguised as mental illnesses, and it might not be that. It might be something different that's happening naturally. Your hormones are changing, and that's what happens when you have a Kundalini awakening. It does change your hormones. It changes who you are, changes how you perceive things. And then, the natural thing to do if you're feeling a little weird is to go to the doctor, and they've been trained to do what we know that they do. So it's just a very complicated situation. But if things are changing in your life, it's okay. Let them change. Go with the flow. Journal. Do what it takes. Just write it. It's going to happen to a lot of us.
And again, as we've said so many times, there's been so many operations that are out there and been in effect on the planet that don't appear to be what they are. When we talked about the witch hunts, so many of those people that were killed were people that had intuitive abilities and also understood natural medicine. And those are two things that lead to liberation, that lead to understanding, that lead to the gnosis that we're talking about. So when we see the Inquisition, what are they really doing? It's a suppression of information, a suppression of the reality that we can kind of heal ourselves. We can actually interact with other densities around us. Why do you think there's a biblical prohibition against communicating with spirits? Because it takes power away from the church's narrative. It takes power away from the narrative of the controllers. Meanwhile, we see India is battling mucormycosis. This is a rare fungal disease. Usually rare. It's not rare now, unfortunately. It affects people whose immune system has been compromised and people that have gone through the plague upon the land. And it's not just in India, as we see. 1.6 million deaths every year from killer fungi. And these fungi are not nice. But really, we should be able to process this. This is why we must always daily be purging in certain ways. For me, it's very different than Cindy. For me, I will basically do almost every day about a 20-hour fast. You know, I eat in pretty much one meal and maybe a snack in there, which typically lately has been Greek yogurt with some berries, some fruit and Greek yogurt. And then for a main meal, it can vary. But I love to have massive salads with all sorts of ingredients. And I've gotten very fond of Texas pecans. I love Texas. I'm so addicted to Texas pecans, by the way. And didn't realize what a producer of pecans Texas is. But I like to have a salad with 9-10 ingredients in it. You know, a bunch of different things to give you a lot of different nutrition. It's about nutrition. And so many people are taking in plenty of calories, perhaps too many calories, but not enough nutrition. There are people that are so far away from starving, but yet they're nutritionally deficient. And then be careful of the vitamins you take in as well, because some are loaded with synthetic things if you are taking vitamins. And some of these things, again, include plastics, you know, and things along those lines that are going to make you sterile. And so for me, that's what my main thing is. And then here and there, I'll try to get in a 2-day or more water fast. Ideally, 3 to 5 day water fast is wonderful if you could do it once a month. And of course, everybody's different. So, you know, Cindy takes a little different approach, but I also do put the trace minerals in my water. And then I also typically put a drop of wormwood in there just in case of parasites.
Yeah, we all have to cleanse in different ways. And, you know, we both kind of sip on that water, which is really, really important. And because I can't fast like Mike does, my body is burning too much energy too fast. So I have to eat in the morning. I might fast once a week, but I do eat in the morning. I just try to eat high nutritional food. Also, one thing that I do to keep the bacteria down in my body is lemons, hot lemon water, a good, you know, use a full lemon, squeeze that in warm lemon water and just drink that down in the morning and let that cleanse out all of your organs, livers, and chase the bad stuff out. Continue to grow the good things, you know, like you want probiotic yogurts. There's something that I do put in my yogurt. It's called xylitol. It's a plant-based sugar, and it does kill candida. And that's what we always want to be doing, is we want the candida down and the good probiotics up. So these are a couple things I do to keep my system clean.
And as I've been saying, this statement keeps coming through to me. This time is different. This time is different. Gaza journalists on the Israeli bombardment. And, you know, I saw today, too, where a nice family was lost, the entire family, including the kids. You know, to me, this is just atrocious. At least 222 people have been killed in the Israeli bombardment of Gaza, according to health authorities, including 63 children. How can you justify that ever? I mean, really, how can you justify it? People will justify it by saying, well, you know, this is all the will of God. And I think that's total BS. That's just me. I think that if you're buying that, you're buying into the whole paradigm, the whole BS paradigm they've given us to make us think that, you know, well, we're helpless. We have no say in this. Right? If it's the will of God, then how could we possibly avert it? Yeah, there are things karmically in motion, and they get us to create negative karma by continually, you know, killing each other. If you're going to use a certain book to justify this, well, then how do you explain, come, let us go down there, the people are unified? We can't have that. Let us disperse them. Let us put a heavenly being. Let us put an Anunnaki, you know, basically one of the Anunnaki or one of the Igigi over each different separate nation. And that way we'll keep them divided. As we know, there were so many wars between the different Sumerian city-states. To me, it's just, you know, completely obvious. And again, people can open their eyes and say, okay, I no longer trust ABC, NBC, CBS. and then maybe open them a little bit more. I don't trust MSNBC. I don't trust Fox. I don't trust, any of these outlets. And still totally buy the left-right paradigm. It's all the left fault. Well, how about, the presidents that go to Bohemian Grove or come out of the Skull and Bones Society that are on the right? How come we ignore that? It's the whole system. And I do think there are some good, really, well-intentioned people that are trying to break the system at this point in time. There are definitely system busters out there. But until we recognize this, we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere. This is not the will of the creator of everything. This is the will of the draconian, reptilian, that word that starts with an I and ends with an I, system of control, where this is how the few control the many. And again, keep us blinded by believing in outdated belief systems that do nothing but divide us.
Yep, it's so true. And boy, do they cause division, because our belief system is like everything. Our belief system is tied in with our ego, and our ego just wants to survive. So actually we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but they've trained us from the time we were like 3 years old to go to Sunday school or go to school and learn all about their systems and how they do things so that we would be loyal to them, but still at the same time thinking we're doing the best thing we could possibly do. So they prey on that. That's horrible.
Yeah, and again, those people are being squeezed, so the Balfour Declaration, which was written by ROTH Shield, it's all about basically creating a homeland for certain people and bringing a certain people supposedly back to this area after 1900 plus years, from 70 AD until, the time after, 1948 is when Israel was reestablished again, but wasn't really, too. You got to go back and look. And how long is biblical history when you get down to it? As we were saying, if we look at DNA evidence, the people of the Levant were most of the same people that have been there the whole time, going back to the time of the last Younger Dryas event, 10,000 years. So who really is kicking out who? Look into the Khazars, look into Khazaria, look into things like that. And you might find more question marks and you might find some answers. But these people, basically half their land was taken from them. And then from that point on, they were squished into smaller and smaller areas, and then more and more settlements popping up in other areas. It's exactly why we have, the Hopi, the Navajo, the Cherokee, all these different tribes on, some of the worst land in most of the cases in the country, and, squished into areas where, nobody else wants it, so we're going to just, stick you there. This is exactly the same program that we saw happen on the Americas. And again, there was a HOLO here in the Americas that claimed 60 to 100 million lives. And again, how can somebody like Columbus discover the Americas when there's 100 million people on, here already or more? We don't even know how many. There's cities in the Amazon that we've discovered that were obviously having very large populations. This is a project of conquering and controlling and destroying. And China plans to create a lot more nuclear power plants, extracting uranium from the ocean. Look at Fukushima.
Yeah.
And the power plants affect other densities as well. When we have any sort of accident or explosion, it rips basically into the time-space continuum. This is a horrible thing. And again, it's time for people to realize and wake up. And I don't like usually using the Daily Star, but this is just talking about Luis Elizondo, who is an ex-Pentagon officer, and he's just one. I mean, we've had so many. There's countless people that have come out and basically spoken up and let us know we're not alone. Well, this is where we get the technology from. This is exactly what's going on. And here you see scientists show how these 3 letters open the doors of perception. How does it do it? Well, to break it down, basically, in some ways, it quiets the brain enough to let the mind expand. The mind and the brain are not the same thing. The mind doesn't need a brain. The mind consciousness exists outside of the brain. The brain is the operating system for this 3D vehicle, and that's all your body is. It's a vehicle for this 3D reality to get around in and to have experiences in of a very dense, heavy nature. But you can achieve things in just meditation, Qigong, yoga. That'll blow most people's minds. You just have to prioritize and develop a regular practice.
And far, far safer, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely. Everything you need is already inside you.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. And then there's a lot of things that you don't need, unfortunately, that are inside most people as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guys, thanks for being part of the family. Make sure you're subscribed. Click the bell for notifications. Thumbs up if you found this interesting and informative. And I know that, we do upset some people that are still in outdated paradigms. But, we are here to break the paradigms and to wake people up so that we could change the timelines.
Yes, bring people to the truth. Thanks
for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. And thanks for your patience in us getting back to you, because it's been crazy busy for us.
Yes.
So thank you for your patience with us responding to emails as well. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.